want to identify your customer rating, people who really will patronize your product. So you want to do a lot of research and not just pick up an idea and just want to shoot it out there and establish. Now, I call it the traditional entrepreneurial system as against the current strategic entrepreneurial era that we find ourselves in COVID-19. Now, in the traditional entrepreneurial system, you could have any idea, spring it out, people are ready to patronize it. But now the consumer behavior towards patronizing products have changed. It has been skewed towards one direction, a particular direction. And so research is very, very critical here. Now, what I did was to research into our market and realizing that the market here in Ghana in auto detailing was limited. I realized I stand at an advantage to be able to succeed with it. And so the research gave me a lot of conviction, and I connected the research into establishing a well-branded business. And so my brand position was one major thing that really convinced the investor to want to invest in my business. And so you don't want to take your branding for granted. And so having done the research in this direction, capital was also an issue to do with. And so in establishing the business, you are looking for capital to get it run. But here is the situation. There was a challenge in raising capital. So what I did was to start it organically. I had to start with other miniature businesses, gradually grow income, gradually grow my capital. It took me 5 years to grow my capital to be able to even buy my first machine. And this is the kind of patience I think the current generation need to find, that sometimes we rely on government to support us financially. We rely on banks to support us financially to establish our businesses. There are situations that the government might not be in the position to help you. There are situations the banks might not be in the position to help you because you don't have any collateral to be able to use as a guarantee for that money you are looking for. When you face a situation like that, meanwhile, you have very brilliant ideas up your mind. How do you handle that? All right. It might take you time to want to raise capital. And so here you want to leverage on some of your talents that might not be that great, but can be able to bring you income in little bits of pieces. You want to initiate your business from another point. Okay. So that might not be the core business you actually want to do, but you can start the business from one point and gradually grow it. The business I'm speaking to you today that I manage, which is Sesil Ventures, started cashless. I didn't get capital from anywhere. I started doing business by going to offices and supplying office stationery. Okay, so I come to your office, I ask you of whatever office product you need. I take your order, I go to a vendor and then tell that vendor, okay, I've got this order of this office items that need to be supplied. Can you trust me? Give me the product, let me deliver and come and make payment. In fact, it was quite a challenge for other vendors to really trust to give you those products because they face challenges of people disappointing them. But realizing that that was the only thing I had, the only thing I had left in my life as capital was to establish credibility. All right. So I tried to establish that credibility to be able to use to generate capital. So credibility was a guarantee source of my business funding. And so you don't want to walk away from credibility. So it took credibility for a vendor to trust me, gave me items on credit to go and supply. And I made sure I brought the entire money back and asked him to really deduct my profit out of it for me. Okay, so I became very sincere to this gentleman to the extent that it got to a stage he had to give me goods worth millions to go and supply and then make my little profit. I kept doing that for years before I was able to build up a little capital to buy my first machine. So credibility is key over here. Now, if we want to link this to the current situation we find ourselves in the COVID-19 pandemic, we had an open-ended entrepreneurial concept that was being operated. But now I call it a closed entrepreneurial concept. A closed entrepreneurial concept because you need to have a niche market to be able to succeed in this COVID-19 situation. The reason being that because of the dynamics and the paradigm shift of the supply and demand of consumers, the demand and supply has been skewed towards a particular area. And so you want to take time and identify those specific needs and demands of such customers, such consumers, and tailor your ideas towards that direction. So it becomes a closed environment, a limited space to operate as an entrepreneur. And so you are looking at an open-ended entrepreneurial practice, which is the traditional entrepreneurial practice, into a closed-ended entrepreneurial practice. That is what the future is about. Specialization. You need to have a unique, specialized field, and you don't make it too broad. Identify the consumer behavior, tailor your business idea towards the consumer needs, and then target a unique consumer who wants to market your product. You don't just develop any product at all and decide to apply it to the open market. You might end up losing. When you study the system carefully, you'll realize that the area of fashion has been a bit affected because of the disease, because of COVID. People are not too much enthused in dressing up. For instance, as we have a meeting of this nature virtual, you might not want to put up too much exorbitant clothing to want to go meet a gathering. And so buying of clothing becomes a bit limited. And so an industry like that might not be the best industry to want to establish around this period of time. Much of the needs and demands of people are moving into safety, are moving into food, the food industry, are moving into medical industry. Okay, and so there are so much. If you do a critical research, you realize that there are a lot of potential and advantages in the area of consumer needs. And so you want to tailor your businesses towards that. You want to target a niche market. Niche marketing is one critical thing you can leverage on in this era. And then target marketing. And the research area should be much of consumer behavioral patterns to help you direct your idea in developing business towards that direction.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Mr. Emmanuel, for that practical advice on how to research, find, and create resources during this new normal. What you shared that stood out to me, you said it like a 3-step process. Identify your consumer, tailor to that consumer's needs, and target products according to these consumers' needs. Sometimes it seems like it can be common sense for us, but in a crazy time like this, it's very easy for us to lose track of that mind shift that we need during this new normal. So for everybody that's joining us right now, if you have any questions for Mr. Emmanuel, please drop them in the chat box. Anything that has stood out from Mr. Emmanuel, drop them in the chat box. He even said a couple of very informative quotes. He said, "Don't take your branding for granted." And I'll say it one more time. Don't take your branding for granted. And that relates to what you said, Mr. Emmanuel, about establishing your credibility. I think what a lot of beginner entrepreneurs may take for granted is establishing that credibility, because what you shared is that it led you to gain that direct capital to fund your business. So if anybody has any questions about funding your business, developing your business, please drop them into the chat box. So Mr. Emmanuel, let's transition into another question. How do you foresee this new normal transforming within the next 1 year and then within the next 5 years?
Okay, so if you have an existing business, so this question will be addressed in twofold. To those who are trying to initiate a business in this new normal. and also to those who already have an existing business which has been challenged and has to still put this business on their feet and drive it through this new normal. Now, if you are a startup, a beginner, now wanting to initiate a business in this new normal, research is critical. You need to understand the dynamics within the entrepreneurial ecosystem now, not as it used to be, because there's a whole new dynamic and paradigm shift in the mindset of people, in the mindset of consumers, in the mindset of customers. You need to understand what is actually happening within the consuming space. And so you want to understand it carefully and then know your area of interest. So you want to tailor whatever idea you have, nurture it to address a problem within the current scope of business operation in this new normal. And so you don't just want to just have a dream, have an idea, and just want to establish it because it can be established. No. Customer care is critical. Consumer behavior is very, very paramount, so that you don't put your investment so that it doesn't come out successful. And also, don't try to chase it and want to rush it out. Take your time. Build it gradually, because we are all still unfolding how the new normal will completely become as we fight COVID-19. All right. And so you want to gradually, organically build up your idea and tailor it to match up with the current trend of affairs within the entrepreneurial space, because this is more of a closed-ended entrepreneurial space as I talk about it. And so to you, the startup, this is what you need: a good research in the area of consumer behavior, a good research in the area of customer service, a good research of quality products, because it is an era of competition. The space is limited for supply and demand. And so a lot of people will be venturing into that small space, which means quality of service, quality of product, a good branding, a good positioning, product differentiation will be very, very critical to play out here. You cannot take things for granted in this era, else your competitors will outwit you heavily. And so this is the time for quality. This is the time for excellence. This is the time for excellent customer service. This is the time for excellent packaging of your products. All right. So in the open era, you can just do anything and get away with it. But in this closed era, people are careful how to spend their money. And so they really want to spend their money on something that is valuable, something that is very well packaged, something that is durable and of quality makeup. And so people having holding back into their expenditure will want to wisely spend their money and want to spend it on quality items. So it tells us that entrepreneurship in this era is going to be more challenging than it used to be. And so you want to be careful in building your brand very well, and that can sustain you into the future. So this is for you as a startup. Now, to the upstarts, those who already have their businesses and have been challenged as a result of the pandemic, don't fret, relax. Do a SWOT analysis of your strengths, of your weaknesses, of the opportunities and the threats into the post-COVID-19 era. Identify all that has happened. So for instance, I was asking a question: is your business challenged as a result of the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, or your business is challenged as a result of a lockdown in your country? In Ghana, for instance, we had a lockdown for 3 weeks. And in the space of the 3 weeks, we had a lot of businesses that have been challenged as a result of the 3 weeks lockdown. But then the pandemic is still in existence. So now you want to find out, was your business challenged as a result of the lockdown, or it was challenged as a result of the pandemic? You need to define this too clearly. If your business was challenged as a result of the lockdown, which is just 3 weeks, you need to really look at your business plan. You have to really look at your business model and find out whether it is a sustainable business. Is it a business that is profit worthy? Is it a business that is sustainable? Is it a business that is worth fighting for? Because in 3 weeks, should your business entirely collapse and you can't find a way forward, and you have operated for like 5 years, then you want to ask yourself, what is happening? There are situations where the economic environment can play a factor, but you also want to look at what role have you played in terms of the type of business model you put in place to run and be able to make profit to sustain your business. Okay, and so you want to look at these factors. Now, if your business looks challenged as a result of the pandemic, that can be understandable. So you want to understand the dynamics within the pandemic era and want to reshape, retailor your business, change the business models to suit the current business model. In my case, for instance, I was operating with diverse aspects of my business. But then, having faced to try to reduce the number of business, my portfolio in business operation, focus and concentrate on a specialized area that is being in high demand to the current consumer need. And so I am narrowing my business operations by reducing my portfolio and then enhancing my strengths. So I did a SWOT analysis, saw my strengths, and then decided to capitalize on my strength and add more value to my strengths to use to pass through this moment of the COVID pandemic. All right. So you don't just want to take things for granted with an existing business. You want to do a critical analysis of your business operation, separating it from lockdown and pandemic. Then you can know how to plan to sustain your business into the future.
I think the biggest piece of advice that you gave everybody in this group is the fact that now's the time for us to do something like a SWOT analysis. And in doing that, first, that will allow us to understand what kind of research we need to do, focus on how we can understand the dynamics that's presented right now. You're right about the paradigm shift that has resulted due to COVID-19. And it is a time for us to build gradually and really step into that entrepreneurial role during this closed-ended market. It may seem like a challenge for us right now, but like what Mr. Emmanuel said, start off with that SWOT analysis, focus on that research because it is most critical for us right now, especially if there's still some people in countries that may be locked down, staying at home, prioritizing social distancing. So maybe we can't go outside and necessarily knock on people's doors and sell that office stationery to build that capital like how Mr. Emmanuel did back when his businesses had collapsed. So for anyone that has any questions, please drop them into the chat box. And now we will transition to Fadila, who will be closing up this session with Mr. Emmanuel, following up with any other comments or any additional questions to end this session. And I thank everybody so much for your patience, for your support, and we're looking forward to learning more about Mr. Emmanuel's journey and connecting with each other. So Ms. Fadila, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Maddie. You have been incredible and been a savior on this part. Thank you, Mr. Emmanuel, for staying with us. And for every single one of you, like WAP Master, Edwin, Afia, Elizabeth, Emmanuel, Hayatu, Leo, and Taslimat, I must appreciate you all. We had a challenge and you stick through to the challenge. One of the things that I was looking forward to hearing from Mr. Emmanuel was how he was able to use the failure he had experienced, because I have known Mr. Emmanuel for quite a while, and I know that at some point in his time being a business owner, he even went bankrupt, but he was able to rise from bankruptcy to solvency and now even almost becoming a millionaire in the process. So one of the things that I would like for him in his closing remarks to also address is anybody who is listening to this, perhaps he wants to start a business, or perhaps he or she has started a business before and the business failed. What message do you have for those people, and even those whose business currently is struggling?
Those whose business are struggling, for instance, I want to encourage and motivate them with one critical word. That is, failure should not mean evil to them. When you encounter failure in the course of running your business, always see failure as a learning curve. Don't see failure as an inefficiency. Failure in the life of an entrepreneur should become a new normal. You don't see failure and assume that failure means you are inadequate, you are not intelligent, or you haven't done it well. No, in entrepreneurship, it's a risk field. And so you want to take positive risk. And when you take the positive risk, there are certain factors that might come against you, which might not be your factor. You might not be the cause of your failure. The environment can be the cause of your failure. The economic system you are in your country can cause the failure of your business. All right. Certain decisions you might make can also cause the failure of your business. So failure comes in diverse ways. So what you want to do is to understand. That is why the SWOT analysis should not be taken for granted. At every point in time, you want to keep assessing, analyzing the steps you take, the decisions you make. Because one critical decision you can make, you consider your business as an entity. All right? Because when you go through failure, you are psychologically counted by that failure. Your business also experiences the downturn of the event of failure. And so if you don't get yourself psychologically prepared and ready, it's difficult to want to suffice your effort. And so if it does not go well, you want to review it. Most often, we pick up business models from books to want to run with. Yes, it's good, but when you get to the field, you have to keep learning along. You might see that there are certain models that might not suit the particular business you are running. So you need to do some customization here. Understand the kind of business you are doing, understand the business environment, understand the type of customers you are dealing with, and then use all such research information to model a unique business model for your unique business that you're running. Okay? So you don't sometimes just keep hooked onto what exactly the books have said. Sometimes you need to think outside the box and then use your unique experiences in your unique environment, tailor them to suit your special environment, and then you can be able to sustain your business in any environment you find yourself in. And then, Fadila, you also mentioned one other thing that comes to me.
Yes. Thank you so much for that. So the follow-up question in relation to that particular topic, it's a little bit away from failure. So it's really important that you highlight the fact that we can actually manage failure. We do not need to lead failure to crumble our entrepreneurial dream. Now, coming back to entrepreneurship in itself, currently a lot of businesses are struggling. They are not making sales. And would you say that at this point in time, it's also a time for people to see what product diversification perhaps or service they could offer within their area of expertise, perhaps a secondary service or a complementary service, or should they rather just focus on internal analysis of what they need to be able to do better? Because for some people, it's a matter of survival, and failure occurs, especially in situations like this, where they feel like their hands are tied. So what advice would you give in terms of both business continuity and business survival?
Yeah, right. In terms of business continuity, you don't want to let go what you're doing now. You want to review it. You want to do your critical analysis and put the right measures in place for future growth. Now, in terms of survival, that is where you want to think outside the box and then move out to some of the skill sets you have
already have
that might not necessarily being applied in your current business.
right
Already have. Good. So if you have some skill sets that you have that you are not practicing, you now want to go outside the box, begin to practice some of these skills here and there to be able to generate income to sustain yourself until such time that your mainstream business is back on track. And at this juncture, you don't want to look at marginal profits. You don't want to look at gaining too much profit in this short period. You might overstress yourself. You want to survive, just like you said it, survival moment. And so you have to launch out your box, pick up some ideas here and there that you know of, and then begin to practice. And that can be of a help to keep you running whilst putting the major structures for your mainstream business.
Right. Thank you so much for that submission. And in addition to what Mr. Emmanuel have just earlier added, so a very typical illustration is this. So let's take Mr. Emmanuel. Mr. Emmanuel is an automobile specialist. He is all about cars. He literally knows the specification of every single car, understand the type of engine it needs, the type of oil it needs, the kind of maintenance it needs, and then they also do the servicing. So at this point, let's say people are not actually driving their cars. So let's say Mr. Emmanuel could use his knowledge of cars to even provide mobile consulting services for those people who cannot be able to drive to where he currently offers his services. He can also teach what he already knows online to people. So Mr. Emmanuel can create, say, an online course on automobile, what do you call it, car maintenance? I don't know the right word, but automobile maintenance, or the fundamentals of ensuring that your car does not get broken down, or, you know, just diversifying. That's one. He could also teach people who are interested, or provide career guidance to people who are interested within his field on how they should get started with their careers, and in a way that they would also avoid some of the failures that he had to go through, or the challenges that he had to go through, because he have experience. So let's take, for example, if you are a baker, now you cannot bake cake because people are not really celebrating their birthday. What can you do? You can start teaching people recipes of different cakes that you have. You can create a WhatsApp group, like as simple as that. I always say that online business doesn't have to mean that you have a big website, blah, blah, blah. It's about using the simple tools you already have access to, like WhatsApp or even Facebook Messenger, creating a group, a closed group, and charging people to be a part of that group so you can teach them the indigenous thing you know how to do. If you're a spice maker, you used to sell spices before, perhaps now you can start, don't tell them everything about your business, because it's important also in knowledge management business for you to protect some information about your business. But don't be afraid to share, because the more that you share, remember that nobody can do what you do the way you do it. So even if they have the exact same recipe as you do, they will not be able to share it. So this session initially was supposed to be all about entrepreneurship, business development. We're supposed to talk about globalization, branding, and marketing. But I'm very thankful to every one of you, especially all of you that have stayed through till the very end. My guest, Mr. Emmanuel, and more importantly than anybody else, I'm going to be very partial on this, Maddie, for stepping up and being the host within just 2 or 3 minutes of notifying you that I'm having a challenge. And this is exactly what we are talking about. The future of work is about adaptability. You need to be able to develop the mindset that you can easily adapt to change. If you have a situation at hand, rather than giving up on what you initially intended to do, use the tools that you have, use the people that show up for you, and show up equally for them. And it translates the same thing into your business. So I want to wrap this up by sharing with you all some basic principles that run across, whether you're a business owner or whatever. In the future of work, we have to always be in learning mode. We cannot seem, Mr. Emmanuel has been doing business for over 30 years, but he's still learning. He's still taking courses. He's still reading books. He's still asking people who are ahead of him to show him how certain elements of his business work. The future of work does not know that when you finish school and then that's it. You have to continuously learn. You have to be adaptive. You have to also respect and be ethical to people and the organizations that you work with. The future of work is not just about tools and technology. It's about people and culture. What kind of organization are you creating? What kind of business are you nurturing? How are your employees? What will the employees say when you're not around? How will the community in which you operate feel about your presence in that community? So the future of work doesn't necessarily just mean about COVID-19 and pandemics coming to take over our jobs or coming to take us out of business. It's about taking lessons from the failures and being able to build sustainable businesses that last beyond just the immediate generation, but also has a holistic look at the environment. What is the environmental impact of the work that you're doing? How are you also empowering other people while you are doing business within the community? So as much as the fact that I think this session has actually turned out to be better than I initially intended it for it to be. And I really like to appreciate all of you for tuning in here today. So Mr. Emmanuel, to wrap up this session, I will hand it over to both you and Maddie. You going first. What message do you have for someone out there whose business, somebody who wants to start a business, has never done a business before and wants to start a business after this pandemic is over? However, I must say that we are all talking about post-COVID-19, but I don't really believe in post-COVID-19. I believe that COVID-19 has come to accelerate the future of work, and it may be here just like malaria is going to be for the rest of our lives, or it may be able to go away in 6 months or in 1 year time. But I don't want everybody here to be thinking about what are we going to do after COVID. Start thinking about what you're going to do now and take little actions based on the information and resources you already have to start creating the future of your business and the future of your work that you have. So Mr. Emmanuel, any last words for us, please?
Good. Yes, I think you rightly nailed it out there. The COVID has come to really accelerate even our way of thinking and our innovative and creative abilities. Now, you realize that within the pandemic era, a number of people just started coming up with some invention that we couldn't ever hear of. You know, Kenya was able to come up with some invention. Ghana came up with some invention. Quite a number of countries, some universities came up with some invention. Towards during this COVID-19 pandemic. Now, you realize that even though there has been inventions towards or directed towards the COVID-19 specific, the challenge is that, or what has challenged us into thinking in that direction, gives us an idea that we have the capability of really industrializing our countries. We have the capability of industrializing our space in whatever we do. That means the ability is in us, but we just need to push. Now, COVID has come to ginger and unearth the abilities we have in us. That means we have the can-do spirit. We don't have to let it die. We have to sustain it and let it project into the future, like you rightly said. So we must propel our future actually from now and not wait for the COVID-19 to be over before we start on something. Nature it from now and project it. Now, as you nature it, you want to also understand the dynamics, which is very, very critical. Understand the consumer behavior. That is the focal point. Let your research be tailored towards understanding the current dynamics of entrepreneurship, the current dynamics and behavior of consumers, the current dynamics and how customers need to be treated, and then how to do a good target marketing. And so once you focus on this, whether COVID-19 is over or not, you have strategically positioned yourself to really succeed into the future. Good.
Thank you so much, Mr. Emmanuel. Maddie, do you have any parting words for us?
Thank you, Fadila. Thank you, Fadila.
My absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for trusting in me. I think you said it perfectly. The new normal right now is all about adaptability. And it has definitely been a pleasure and an honor to be able to co-host this session with Mr. Emmanuel. I am so proud of his journey. 30 years as an entrepreneur is truly inspiring, and I appreciate your advice on how to approach the future of work. I also appreciate you giving us an honest background of your beginning struggles and hardships as an entrepreneur. I'll definitely be looking more into your story and your work. Also, in the chat box, I put a link for everyone to look into and learn how to do a SWOT analysis. And I will also send a message with 10 facts or 10 learnings that I had during this session to share with you all. So I hope you enjoy the 10 learnings that I've had from our dear Mr. Emmanuel.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Madi. Last but not the least, Mr. Emmanuel, would you like to share with us a little bit about the Emmanuel Entrepreneurial Coffee program that you have?
Okay, right. So I have this initiative called the Sesil Entrepreneurial Coffee Session. Now, this is meant to have a gathering of practically oriented entrepreneurs having a conversation and supporting each other to overcome their challenges and propel their businesses into the future. Now, this came about as a result of, we realized that most seminars come up and give us a lot of theories, a lot of information that we need to convert into practical mode. And so
right
here, the concept has been designed such that when you come in, the practical experience you had, the practical challenges you had on the field that you might not be able to use any business model to solve, you want to bring it on board such that we will be able to have a conversation. People sharing ideas from their various experiences helps you to find a solution to your problem easily. So in this session, we have the critical thinking moment, and then we have the networking section. And so having gone through all this entrepreneurial experience for these years, I decided to come up with this initiative to support and impact the next generation of entrepreneurs that we need in Africa and beyond. And so that is what the concept is about. I have a handle on Facebook. I have it on Instagram. I also have it as Sesil Entrepreneurial Coffee Session. So SC Coffee Session, at SC Coffee Session. You will have that on all the social media handles. But on LinkedIn, I have Emmanuel E.K Awumee. And on all these platforms, I always share motivational messages. I share practical oriented entrepreneurial issues that you can learn from a lot. And so any startup out there and upstarts that are part of this session, follow those pages and you'll be motivated to drive your business. I share a lot of information, trust me, because I really want to impact the next generation of entrepreneurs.
I must congratulate you on how far you have come. I have seen so many different people that I personally look up to attend this event. So if you're in Accra, Ghana, it's a highly recommended session. Mr. Emmanuel, we need to talk about creating a virtual version of this coffee session so you can be able to reach more people all over the world. In the absence of any further questions, I would like to profoundly thank each and every one of you for taking out their time to be here. If you have anyone whom you know within the next 15 minutes, our next call starts at 6:10. We are going to have a 45-minute session with one of the most incredible, amazing, and one of the most successful entrepreneurs right here in Accra, Ghana. He is under the age of 30. He has one of the largest entertainment construction company in Ghana. He also has a talent management company, and the group of his company is called Priceless Group Africa. So they have construction, they have music and talent management, they have entertainment as well as investment. He's going to be our next speaker, but his topic is specifically targeted to people who are interested in entrepreneurship or working in the music and entertainment industry, and to share with them the different approaches in which they can be able to diversify their source of income, the different approaches they can be able to use to grow their business, and the alternative careers that exist within this industry. So we have 10 people, actually 11 people still on this call at this particular point in time. So if you have one person you know who is interested in this particular session or will be interested in this particular session, give them this very, this very meeting ID and send them the registration link so that they can hop on the call to join us on this powerful session that is about to get started. In the absence of any further questions, thank you so much, Hayatu, Emmanuel, Madeline, Ifira, Elizabeth, Leo, Taslimat, Williams, as well as Mustafa for being with us today. And I hope to see you on our next call next week. Thank you for understanding and for adapting to the challenge that we face today in bringing you this webinar.